Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the third day of April 2024. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for coming on our show. And we're going to jump right into Liberty Essentials with, hang on a minute here, with Ralph, the IT guy, and Bill Mohr. How you guys doing?
Good. Yourself?
Doing good.
Another gloomy day here in this beautiful state of Michigan that we have had torrential rains here. I went and put the horses away last night, and there were little ponds all over the pasture, and we have good drainage around it for good reason. But we had all kinds of little ponds out there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if we had a lot of rain.
Well, with the warm that we've had lately, you know, the saying may not be quite right. It's now April showers bring April flowers.
Yeah, I guess so. All the daffodils are out, so I guess I can't complain too much. At least we don't have mosquitoes. So anyhow, what are we talking about today, gentlemen? I'm going to go and find that screenshot we were talking about before we got online here. So what are we talking about today?
It said that how strangely a tyrant will perverse the plain meaning of words. That is a lot of what we find today in our Congress and our state legislatures, who will redefine terms when they either interpret the Constitution or interpret laws or go to legislate new laws. That is a very big issue when we don't go back to the original intent of why they were put there. It's like, and Donna, I know you'll understand this. When we have fences built on properties, whether that be for privacy or whether it be to constrain animals or to keep things in or keep things out, right? The fences are put there for a purpose. Now, if you had fences built up in a very rural environment where you're dealing with a lot of wild creatures for the purposes of keeping them out of your property and safeguarding your home, and 50 years from then, the property gets sold to another person who moves in, and they see those fences and don't think about why they were put up in the first place, but rather they don't like them for whatever reason. Say they're white instead of red or made of iron instead of wood, for whatever reason you could imagine. They don't like these fences that they bought with the property. So instead of trying to figure out why they might be there, they just go ahead and rip them down. Okay. What's the very next thing that's going to happen? The reason why the fences were put up, the protections that were in place, are now removed, thus allowing those creatures, those wild animals, to come in and cause the damage that was trying to be prevented by the previous owner. The same thing happens in our governments when we establish laws or establish constitutions. Those are the protections against certain things. And they were put there for reasons. And what we see today in our legislature and our Congress is they're busy tearing down fences that were designed to protect the American people or protect the people of the state, namely Michigan, without first consulting.
They're predators. Yeah. I mean, they want to tear them down. We're talking about a parasite class who are predators. So of course they want to remove any protection for we the people.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And they don't first consult to figure out why the fences were put up in the first place. Okay. That's just a quick little analogy.
Great analogy.
So Madison wrote something to the people of New York. It's Federalist Papers number 41. I would encourage everybody to read through this. And I'm just going to read it. It's pretty short. He says, "Some who have not denied the necessity of the power of taxation have grounded a very fierce attack against the Constitution on the language in which it was defined. It has been urged and echoed that the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States amounts to an unlimited commission to exercise every power which may be alleged to be necessary for the common defense or general welfare. No stronger proof could be given of the distress under which these writers labor for objections than their stopping to such a misconstruction." So this is early on we're talking about, and there's already people trying to say, because Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes and such for the common defense and general welfare, we hear that clause used quite frequently, that it amounts to some supernatural authority that these guys can claim to use that clause to collect taxes for any purpose that they want, right? He goes on, had no other enumeration or definition of the powers of Congress been found in the Constitution than the general expression just cited, the authors of the objection might have had some color for it, though it would have been difficult to find a reason for so awkward a form of describing an authority to legislate in all possible cases. A power to destroy the freedom of the press, the trial by jury, or even to regulate the course of dissent or the forms of conveyances must be very singularly expressed by the terms to raise money for the general welfare. But what color can the objection have when a specification of the objects allude to by these general terms immediately follows and is not separated by a longer pause than a semicolon? If the different parts of the same instrument ought to be so expounded as to give meaning to every part which bear it, shall one part of the same sentence be excluded altogether from a share in the meaning, and shall the more doubtful and infinite terms be retained in their full extent, and the clear and precise expression be denied in any significance whatsoever? He's calling them out here because they are taking phrases from sentences and trying to interpret them differently than the context of the sentence. Okay? And it's the same thing we see in Congress today, over and over and over. He goes on, for what purpose could the enumeration of particular powers be inserted if these and all others were meant to be included in the preceding general power? Nothing is more natural nor common than first to use a general phrase and then to explain and qualify it by a recital of particulars. But the idea of an enumeration of particulars which neither explain nor qualify the general meaning and can have no other effect than to confound and mislead is absurdly, which, as we are reduced to the dilemma of charging either on the authors of the objection or the authors of the Constitution, we must take the liberty of supposing had not its origin with the latter. So they're trying to use the particulars of the clause, the general welfare clause, to expound their authority on other means, right? To expand their authority into legislation in other terms, instead of just remaining within the confines of context, the taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay debts and provide for common defense. They're separating all that. He goes on to say the objection here is the more extraordinary as it appears that the language used by the convention is a copy from the Articles of Confederation. The objects of the Union among the states, as described in Article 3rd, are their common defense, security of their liberties, and mutual and general welfare. The terms of Article 8 are still more identical. All charges of war and all other expenses that shall be incurred for the common defense or general welfare and allowed by the United States and Congress shall be defrayed out of a common treasury. A similar language again occurs in the Article 9. Construe either of these articles by the rules which would justify the construction put on the new Constitution, and they vest in the existing Congress a power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. But what could have been thought of that assembly if, attaching themselves to these general expressions and disregarding the specifications which ascertain and limit their import, they had exercised an unlimited power of providing for the common defense and general welfare? I appeal to the objectors themselves whether they would in that case have employed the same reasoning and justification of Congress as they now make use of against the convention. How difficult it is its own condemnation. It's a warning that Madison laid out to all of them at convention, calling them out in their error. When he references the phrases used in the Articles of Confederation, the same type of terminology, he is letting them know that this general welfare is attached to the common defense, right? The naval and militia powers within the United States. That was the confines of the taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, right? To cover the debts of war and to provide for the arming of the Navy and the militia in the protection or the common defense and general welfare of the United States. This is just a very simple, example of how long this has been going on, and this stems all the way back to Madison. Okay, but it hasn't changed. Congress continues to separate clauses and phrases out of context of sentences, one of which is the Commerce Clause they use, and they quote that in just about everything nowadays. When they want the authority to do it, they will use their regulation in commerce across the states to define or to justify their encroachment against individual liberty.
That process has been going on though for a long time, and I see that a lot with the regards to the Bible. Well, people will pull out a verse here and there, but they don't read it in context. And so, like my dad always said, he said, if you're going to read a verse, he said, I want to see, I want to see people do the chapter before and the chapter after at a minimum, instead of just a verse to justify their means.
Yeah, and remember, chapter and verses were man-made when it comes to the scriptures. It was our idea to separate this out so we could easily find things. However, in my opinion, there have been numerous flaws in that as well, where we leave out certain portions or a paragraph, right? Because these are letters, they're sentences and paragraphs, where we've left out a sentence from a prior paragraph that seems to lay out the foundation for the very next chapter.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you're talking about right here with in regards to that Federalist paper.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly the way things do it. Remember how strangely tyrants will perverse the plain meaning of words. Right? So that was quick. And like I was talking to Donna this morning, for all those listening, that I struggled with this yesterday and this morning, and I didn't have peace on what to do this morning, right? And I still don't. This is kind of just an off the cuff kind of thing, things that come to mind. But one of the highlights that I want to go after here, I was just reading up on Alexander Hamilton a little bit, and a lot of people don't go through and read about who the people were that helped found the nation, right? Who the original fighters were that were willing to sacrifice their life, liberty, and their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, right? And I like going through that, and some of that, and I understand Hamilton came a little bit after that, but nonetheless, he was in the mix shortly and during the war, and helped a lot in the foundation of the government. And I don't agree with everything Hamilton had to say even back then. Nor
Do you
did
agree
John
with
Adams.
everything anybody says?
No.
I don't. I
fact,
literally, you give tolerance and go, well, this is where I either learn or we just agree to disagree, and that's okay.
Yeah, I didn't even agree with everything my father said either, but that's, we spent years in talk and discussions every morning figuring out the solution for it, right?
Well, you want to know what my dad and myself, what our big thing is Dad was all into soul sleep. He's like, yep, it's going to be soul sleep. And I said, well, when you get up there and you realize that you're wrong, you can go, by golly, Donna was right with this. Absent from a body present with the Lord. And we would just go back and forth. It was just fun. We had fun with it.
Yep. Each is up for their own conjecture, right? That's why in our Michigan Constitution, it's every person has the right to worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience, right? That was one of the fears from the founders, is that they would establish a centralized government church like they did in England, the Church of England, and they would compel each individual to attend by whatever means necessary. So, yeah, we have that religious liberty in the state of Michigan.
And that's a good thing, because every single one of us is flawed and we don't have everything right. No matter how much everybody thinks that they have everything right. Got a lot of news for you. I'm pretty extra sure that that day that we meet God up in heaven, he's going to be like, well, how is that really working for you? You know, and it wasn't exactly the way it is, but I love you anyhow. Come on in and let's go walk in the garden for a while.
Yep. Each person has their good points, and each have their bad points for the most part. But that's where great minds come together, and in the counselor of many, there's safety, or in the council of many. I misquoted that.
Oh, we're like a bunch of little kids on a playground that we gotta help each other. And you remember when we were all little and somebody would fall and everybody would go and feel sorry for them and help pick them up and make sure they were okay. That's the way it's supposed to work. The kids have it right. Adults, we suck at this, right? Somebody falls down and we're like, well, they shouldn't have done that. That's the MO out there right now. And where kids will actually go and care and go pick a dandelion and hand them a dandelion and say, you okay? And we need to get back to that.
Yep.
Pretty extra sure.
Yep. Everybody has the duty to be their brother's keeper, right? We are supposed to exhort and uplift, and not only that, but not leaving off the reproof and correction as well. So it takes both to make it happen. So
and sometimes we use a dad approach and sometimes we use a mom approach. Dad approach is knock it off, you're going to die, Mom approach is let's get a cookie and go talk about this a minute, because I think you can make better choices.
Yep. That's my background too. And me, I've got four girls in my home as well that I raise.
You are so outnumbered.
I got my dog. He's neutered though, so he doesn't really understand. But that's always been my approach. If you're crying about something, I want to know why so I can help out. But if you're not bleeding, then I don't understand. I really don't.
That's where my dad would stop in and look at you and say, stop your crying or I'll give you something to cry about. I mean, I heard that more than one time in my life, It's a good thing. Dad's
my grandfather used to say, go suck on a rock. So you kind of led up into the next point that I had pulled up here too, is that that we all have to work together towards a common goal here. And one of the things that we had posted in the U.S. Taxpayers Party Michigan, this was back in 2020. Gallup Studies did a poll on February 15th of 21 that they said it revealed support for a third political party, and that was according to Breitbart News when they reported it. But they said, elected Republicans and Democrats beware. According to a new study by Gallup, voters believe parties do such a poor job representing the American people that a third party is needed. In fact, just 33% of Americans believe the current political representatives are doing even an adequate job serving their most essential purpose.
Well, that's a really great piece of news for today. It means everybody's getting smarter to see that these political parties are nothing more than special interests bought and paid for by BlackRock, all of the corporations and everything that's in the structure there. They're just little cults.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. They said in an additional record, 50% of those polled call themselves independent voters as opposed to members of either side. So you've got 50% of 62% of the American population that call themselves independent voters, right? That's 31% in total. However, if 62% are calling for the rise of a third party, then, where are you guys at? They said this number is up about 10% from about a decade ago. They said Americans are beginning to wake up to the lack of good governance offered by our recent and current elected officials. Well, there's some good news in this, right? The U.S. Taxpayers Party and its national affiliate, the Constitution Party, and I'll touch on that in a minute. The reason why we're not the Constitution Party as Michigan is because of these major two parties that the people have continually allowed in office.
And Jocelyn Benson, the treasonous said acting Secretary of State that should be removed for violating her oath of office and absolutely doing everything wrong.
Yep. But none of them will allow us to change our name. Okay. And you got to think about that, because there's no law stating that we cannot, but their excuse is that there's no law stating that there is. And you got to realize that this is America. In the absence of law, there is liberty, yet they continue to deny that liberty. And it just creates confusion, right? That's the whole premise. We're trying to change our name to the Constitution Party to eliminate the confusion when it comes to the ballot, because we have candidates that run as the Constitution Party at the national level, and then you see them listed as the U.S. Taxpayers Party in Michigan, and the American Independent Party in other states, and the Tisch Independent Party before. So there's a lot of confusion that happens with the electorate in that regard. But anyway, that was just a quick thing why we're not the Constitution Party. But we've been on the scene since 1992, right? Anybody that's voted since 92 has seen that name on their ballot. We've been producing and placing ballot qualified candidates since then in Michigan. We have the right platform and the true sustainability, and I know that's a word that we really try not to use today.
No, we want to take it back. We need to use it all the time in the right context.
Yeah. Sustainability regards the people standing up and keeping their republic, as Benjamin Franklin said. Right. We're zealous towards good governance and committed to the Constitution. Okay. And at this point, we still nominate candidates within our own conventions. We hold no primaries. We don't play in the political games. And thus, we are able to properly vet people and make sure that they fit the bill, so to speak, right? That their allegiance is to the Constitution and to God Almighty, and that they will uphold their oath to the utmost. And such, we can hold them accountable when they're in office. We're not like the big two parties where we put people up and then we just let them go and get infiltrated by the current corrupt system.
Well, I think what they do is they vet to find out how controllable the candidates are, and they make sure they're controllable by the people that are running the parties. This is a whole vetting system for them of will you fit in with the organized crime syndicate here and do what you're told. And I mean, and to the point of if they step out of line, they start getting threatened and such, but they've got something on them. Because I had one of these retired congressmen come to me with a stick and said, "You can have this." He said, it is blackmail material on every single member of Congress. If you use it, you'll get in. If you don't, it'll get you killed. And I'm like, there's the road. Hit the road, Bucky. We're done with this right now. And so they can compromise people that way. And what we really need is people that are ready to throw it down and say, I am going to do the right thing, even if they kill me. I could care less. I know where I'm going. And you only get that by having Jesus Christ in your life. I'm sorry. I don't believe that you can get that any other way than know that you're serving the risen Savior and that you're not going to cave. And they could put a gun to your head and you're going to say, see, won't be seeing you on the other side because I know where you're going and I know where I'm going, but good luck with that. And
yeah, you can't threaten me by sending me home, right?
Nope.
You're doing me a favor at this point.
That's kind of like hitting the finish line early, you know. That's like score, you know.
Yep. So imagine this: if we had 62%, right, that already claimed that they want a third party to uphold the values and the Constitution. If that 62% would actually go out and vote, and I've got to lay this out a little bit, right? Because we know that election fraud happens all the time. We know that these people are selected and appointed more so than elected by the people. Okay. However, I've been saying this for a couple of years. We have the vast majority, close to 70% and higher, that do not vote in the state of Michigan. All right. And that's supposedly registered electors. And there's, I'm not even going to guess, but a lot of that is also registered electors who need to be removed for one reason or another. Mostly
Yes, since
death,
Benson,
right?
the treasonous failure, put them back on the voter rolls after they were removed.
Yep. But let's say that that there is in fact a 70% that don't go out and vote. If you had everybody show up and vote in an election, I said this in 2020 as well. If everybody showed up like they are supposed to, right? It's their duty, their right. We should be exercising it. There wouldn't be able to be election fraud because there is no way to manipulate extra ballots. There's no way to manipulate the numbers beyond that, except for the general manipulation of the digital machines, right?
They couldn't
like the
cheat enough to down it.
Right. But
Yeah.
the vast majority will upset the system to the point I don't think their algorithms can catch it. They won't be able to keep up with those kind of numbers. I think the reason why they get away with it so well is because of the lack of people voting.
So I'm going to bring something up here that I think might help with some of this. Since we now have same-day voter registration in Michigan, why do we have anyone on the voter rolls? Get rid of the voter rolls, have everyone that comes and shows up to vote re-register and be revalidated to be able to vote on the day that they're voting.
And there you got it. You've got
It's 100% non-discriminatory toward anyone who wants to vote. They just have to validate themselves as a valid voter on the day that they vote.
Yeah.
Your brilliance is showing through, Ralph.
That's a good point, Ralph, because one thing that used to happen in the urban towns and such, as we all migrated west here, when you had a town of just 100 people or so, which was very, very common then, it wasn't so much that they had to keep a registered roll. It was more so the fact that everybody knew each other. All right, you couldn't walk through town without somebody recognizing you. And it was very easy to validate an elector's status because of that. When you're known by your boards and known by your township, then there's not much else that you have to prove to them, right? Because like in my township, most, I think minus one, but most of the people that sit on the board in my township know who I am, know what I do, and know where I live. And that's because I made it public enough to them, because I want them to know who I am and know that I'm keeping a constant watch over things that are going on. But the proof of elector, or the proof to be an elector within the state, would be just as simple as your registered property, right? And I catch a lot of flack on this because I don't believe that people who don't own property should be able to vote.
That's the way
They
it
don't hold
started
any
out.
stake in the game. Yeah, it should be registered electors should be property owners within the state that they are a citizen of.
So I guess my counter argument to that would be, what happens when BlackRock and Vanguard continue buying up 90% of the property? Do they get 90% of the vote?
Well, they've been trying to go that way for a long time with that Citizens United.
Yep.
That's where that's
that's another issue as well, because we're allowing outside influences, right? People that are corporations, we'll call them persons, entities. We're allowing entities to purchase and buy the Americans' land here that are not part of America. You
And
have
they're able to
numerous
fund
corporations.
candidates and PACs and all this stuff. All of this stuff should be torn down. Hey, I got an idea as we're building online, like, an idea here. And with what you're saying, register same day, Ralph. What if you did something, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, see if it sticks on the wall and see what anybody thinks. But what if you know how when Catholics go to Palm Sunday and they get the ashes, I think it's Palm Sunday. They get no, it's a Wednesday, Ash Wednesday,
Ash Wednesday,
and they
yeah.
get the little ash dot on their forehead and such. What if you ended up having like an ink pad, and you just on a thumb, so that they couldn't go from precinct to precinct and vote twice. You don't have to take a thumbprint on it, but you could just have them go, and if they got something that's on their hand, they would be able to vote in multiple places.
Chuck E. Cheese hand stamps.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it right there. Chuck E. Cheese hand stamp.
Yep. But once again, that falls back into proving your electoral status, right? So
yeah, you get one vote, and now let's see your hands.
Well, take a look at the requirements for same-day registration, the way that they instituted that. Most of those requirements are things that we should be validating of every voter when they go to vote anyway, because they're very similar. They're not as thorough as they should be, but it's a step forward from just show up and vote with no identification, with no nothing. It's at least a step forward from that, and it would make it an awful lot more difficult to tamper with things if people had to produce these same kinds of identifying information. Be it, a lot of it falls down to proof of residency within the precinct that you're voting in within the last 30 days. And here, let me see if I can pull that up a minute.
We've gotten really stupid with this letting people vote thing. I really think that people need to be here for more than one generation to be able to vote, because this is for policy, and this is something we should talk about at some point in time. It's a bad idea, because you can take a country over by just importing a whole bunch of people again across let's say open borders, and claim, even if they claim citizenship, you've got a test to take and some study. They're not doing a good job with this at all, and so we could be importing an entire army, letting them be citizens here, and whammo, they take over elections just by voting. There's not enough of a check there.
So looking into the requirements here, you need to have proof of residency, such as a Michigan driver's license or state ID card. Now, there are other ones in there that are much easier to spoof, which should have been not in there in the first place and should be, not part of anything going forward, such as a current utility bill, bank statement, paycheck or government check, other government document, or college or university records, which none of that really precludes you from having an address in multiple precincts and having documents from each of those precincts, registering for same-day voting in each of those precincts and voting multiple times. But if you use that kind of as a model and said, clear the voter rolls every single election, so there are no voter rolls, and every time you're validating the residency of the person using a state ID card or something like that, well, the voter rolls are unnecessary if you're actually doing proper authentication of the person.
Mm-hmm. Don't
at
they
the
do
time
that in
of voting.
Minnesota? I think Minnesota doesn't. It's one of the northern states at the northern plain states that they do not have voter rolls.
I don't know, but if you have proper authentication, you shouldn't need them. And we should have proper authentication at the time of voting anyway. So why do we need them?
Let me play the advocate here a minute, just because I like to. Now, if you did it that way, and we ended up just having the qualifications presented and proofed on the day of election, or maybe even the day before, however you want to do that. Uh, Ralph, that would harm our citizens that can't get out and vote. They wouldn't be able to be mailed their absentee voter ballot and be able to send that in and have it count a week after the election.
Yeah, amazing how that would work, isn't it? But if you still wanted to be able to do absentee voter ballots, which I would say in some cases it's somewhat of a necessary evil for certain limited cases, such as so that the folks in the armed forces can vote. That's really about the only valid use of them that I can think of. But because of that, you do need to have a system in place, probably, if you consider that to be valid. Then you do the same thing when they get an absentee ballot, as you validate them before you give them that absentee ballot. They go to the clerk's office, they pick up an absentee ballot, they get authenticated the same exact way that they would on election day. And a record is kept of that authentication along with the ID of that ballot, so that the authentication status of that ballot can be validated when it's counted.
I think the military, that people in the military could go to things like go to bases and vote on the base and such, and have that would be, the military would is well suited to be able to handle that sort of operation for a military.
That would be ideal if we limited the number of bases that we have so that it's not spread over 10 billion different spots.
I know. Let's put all our bases on American soil.
Okay, there's a novel idea, isn't it? We could actually stop the human trafficking and the drug trafficking and the weapons trafficking on our own freaking planes.
Yeah, let's put all the bases on American soil and then figure out how that jives with not having a standing army.
Well, and I want to clarify that because I'm really proud of our military, but there are some. It's like every other institution, like the Christian Church, the Jews, Christians, and Islam. They've all been infiltrated. So has our schools, so has our corporations, and so is the military. And so there are rogue elements in every area that we have to think this thing through, because Republicans not necessarily are Republicans just because they got an R there. Who knows what they are? I mean, they could be spies working for somebody that's absolutely an enemy of this nation, or foreign agents, or domestic agents, because half of the people inside of the different organizations are working for somebody else anyhow. And look at our politicians. They're working for themselves. They don't give a crap about us.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I draw the same parallels to kind of how I consider the military structure right now that I do with the current setup of the TSA. I have a great deal of respect for the actual people serving in the military. It's the structure that I disagree with, because it's not how it's supposed to work. Same thing with the TSA. The individual people in the TSA, I've had wonderful interactions with a lot of the actual TSA agents, but I disagree vehemently with the structure of the TSA and the security measures that they institute.
Agreed. Absolutely. I agree with you.
As far as the military goes, we are all the military. We're supposed to be defending this country ourselves, and it's supposed to be under basically local control, not the way the structure is currently. Now, again, I have a great deal of respect for the people in the military.
I do too.
All of the folks in our armed forces, that takes a special person, but to a certain extent, we're putting a lot of those very brave people at risk for purposes that should not be happening.
Well, yeah, some of them. I mean, look at all the unwars we've had since World War II. They weren't declared wars.
Yeah.
And so all of our sons and daughters have been sent to these areas to be somebody else's little political pawn. And it's not a good game. It's a bad game, and we need to be out of this.
Being essentially organized as and used as, I mean, I'm not going to say that they are, but they are being used as mercenaries in a lot of cases for the interests of our large corporations, as dictated by our centralized military structure and government.
Political puppets.
Exactly.
Yeah. The political puppets that are pulling the strings and out globally. It's the organized crime syndicate that's using every single person is being used in some form or another, whether we jump onto their lies through fake stream media and parrot that, or if, and it takes some time. I mean, and we're going to get it wrong. And there's not one person that's going to get the message right every single time, because we're learning. What was your point, Bill?
Well, look at what the foundation of this country was when the people had to go to war, right? That had to be declared. It still does. It has to be declared by the legislature or the Congress of the people. Okay, those are our representatives. And then the foundation War of 1812, when we went back at it with them, when we went and declared war, when they invaded and we declared war, who was it that was first to volunteer? It was the representatives of the people. Those that made the declaration of war were the first to go. They were the first willing to fight the battle. And today, what do we see? We see 535 members of Congress up there, and if they ever have the guts to declare war against who, namely our own government, that is the ones infringing upon our rights and the ones who are declaring war against their own people, if they ever have the guts to go out and declare war, they should be the first ones to go. If they need to be willing to send them first. But in the meantime, they want us to send out our own children to fight these wars, all unconstitutional in my lifetime and beyond.
Yeah, they're cowards. I mean, where's one of them to stand up and just put their foot on the ground and say, we're done with this J6 nonsense, and get them out right now. I mean, and nobody is saying anything. We have political prisoners, Americans that are political prisoners in the United States of America, within our borders. And you can say all you want that Washington, D.C. is not part of the United States. I don't care. Well, then it's time for somebody to say something and do something and be done with this. This is absolutely nuts. And they're silent. They're cowards and they're silent. And they could do this. They could sit there and fire them all and defund them and get this thing. I mean, there's so many ways to address it, and they're silent.
Yep, that's right. And that's just like during the talk. How many times have we heard talk about impeachment of the criminal Biden? Right. That's been around the block numerous times over the last 3 years now. Yet every single one of them turns into just a talking point, and they highlight the crimes that are going on, and they validate the crimes that are going on. And everybody sees the crimes that are going on, yet nobody brings forth justice.
Well, and what they don't do is they don't talk the law. That's the thing that's really gotten me, is that, the sky is falling. This is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. Okay, what's the next step? The next logical step for any sane person is, what do you do about it? You go to the law, because this is a country of laws. You go to the laws, you quote the law, you hold them to the law. And if the judges don't do anything, you hold them to the law. And if they don't, if the prosecutors, you hold them to the law, and you just roll right downhill and not one of them, and I mean, not one of them has gone down this path.
Yeah. So there's a simple thing we use in the U.S. Taxpayers Party, and I don't even think I showed you this, Donna, but it's actually in our preamble of the U.S. Taxpayers Party before our platform even. And it says that during the early stages of the formation of our government, John Adams said in a letter that our representatives should be the most wise and good chosen from among us, not parties, wise and good. When adopting legislation, three things should be considered. One, is the proposed law constitutional? 99% of them right now would stop at number one. That would be a no. Number two, if so, is the proposed law good for the people as a whole, right? The general welfare that is so misconstrued, is it good for the people as a whole? And number three, if it is it the will of the masses that this proposed law is passed? If we would, if all of our legislatures, actually, say if 51% of our legislators would use these 3 points to get things done, it would be simple. They wouldn't have arguing points. They wouldn't be highlighting the crimes. They would be revealing the crimes and then dealing with them accordingly, right? What is constitutional? What is good for the people? And is this what the people want from us? And it most certainly is. I mean, we called the Constitution Party called for the impeachment of Joe Biden back early 21, right? It's something that should have happened. And what's her name? Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, yeah. She brought it up, brought up the exact same articles of impeachment. I don't know where she got them from, maybe from us. But anyway, she brought it up on the same unconstitutional points, and that was namely his disregard for the Supreme Court and his eviction notices and such. When he wanted to extend that, the Supreme Court said no, and he did it anyway. Right? How much more proof do you need? Not only did you violate the law, but you violated the precedence that was set by the Supreme Court directly pointing to that law. That should have been an ample opportunity. But what happened? Marjorie Taylor Greene, that little coward up there, she presented this and then just left it. Says, here, I did my part. Here's the articles of impeachment. You guys do what you're going to do. No, you fight for it. If you're not willing to fight for our rights, we ain't got none, right? It's individual liberty. It's this cowardice mindset that we have to fear this government that is supposed to be representing us. The government is supposed to fear the people.
They got us running from one of these little new gurus of goodness in the Republican Party, whatever it is. They've got us running. Oh, this person will fix us, that. And so we get behind him and we do nothing and sit there and it's almost an idolatrous type thing, really. And what Troy Smock said, who's suing the federal government right now for kidnapping him out of Texas, the first arrest in the gulag for J6, and he wasn't even the capital. They got him because he was a black guy and wanted to have something. And he was on my show and he talked flat out about it. He said, this is exactly what happened. He said they wanted me in there because I'm a black guy, and they were hoping to have headlines of white supremacy. He goes, there was none there. He said, there was none there. And so his point with Marjorie Taylor Greene was, why has she not addressed this? Why has there been no go other than what we're seeing? So all I can see is how many of these people are actually actors and actresses instead of getting in there and actually getting her done. I mean, it's time to have some real people, some real patriots that are in there and are just going to be like, we're hammering through this. And when we're done, this is not even going to look remotely like what we have right now. You go to 90% nullification and keep peeling this sucker back until you got this thing peeled back to what was supposed to be done. And every single person that committed crimes against humanity and treason, they're out of here. And there can be no negotiation on this because, stripped of citizenship, stripped of all sorts of things. And I mean, there's ways to fix this.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
Once again, it all starts with the people. The people got to get it right. And the people got to get involved in their local areas and start building this thing from the ground up. We can't, this is not a top-down thing. We all have to be involved. And I know this is 2024. This is the big presidential election, you know, but it reminds me of what is that show? Was it All in the Family? Yeah, I think it was All in the Family. I can't think of his name right now.
Archie Bunker.
Yeah, Archie Bunker. Yeah, and they did one episode where him and his son-in-law there were fighting over elections, and his son-in-law was actually right, being the little communist liberal that he was portrayed as, rather. But Archie Bunker specifically said, you know, I don't vote for anything else. I hold my vote for the big one, right? And that namely of the presidency. And as long as we've got our eyes fixed on who's president and not worried about anything else that happens at our local elections, meanwhile, they're busy passing all these new taxes and infringements upon us, right? Upping the millage every time. I mean, how many times does a millage get shot down? Very rarely. And they're continuing to provide all this funding for their unconstitutional acts. And we got our eyes fixed on the federal government somehow. Like they're gonna, like you said, Donna, like they're gonna come in and be our great political saviors. And it ain't gonna happen.
It's not going to happen. And listen to the hopium that's going on within the Republican Party. But these are our values and such. I'm like, people, they've done nothing. They have done absolutely nothing. They're as bad as the Democrats are working together, and it's a uniparty. We've got to get this like starry-eyed, but they're Republicans out of our heads, or they're this, or they're that. Look at the facts, and that's what we got. You know, and you look at say the Constitution Party, U.S. Taxpayers Party. The biggest thing to keep in mind is this is a disruptor. It is a disruptor to the control that they have. And I want everybody to think about this. When I started going forward to developing the documents for removing the electronic machines at the township level, who attacked me the most? It was Republicans. The Democrats have been absolutely silent, but the Republicans are the ones that have been attacking us and saying, "Oh no, this is overthrowing the government." I'm like, you morons, are holding them to a standard and to the standard of the law. This is what we're talking about here. This isn't overthrowing. This is holding them accountable. Everybody wants accountability on the Republican Party until somebody steps forward and said, "We're going to have accountability. This is how we're going to do it." Oh no, we're going to lose Republican votes. In what freaking universe?
If making it honest loses Republican votes, are they fighting for an honest election?
No, they're not. They just want to control it. There's nothing. The Republicans are the ones that have been kicking. The Democrats have been pretty silent, actually. They just because they've got the control at the House. But anytime you want to change it, who's the hit squad for changing it? It's the Republican Party.
Yep. Well, James Garfield, and I'll take this a little out of context because I don't remember the quote specifically, but he had told the people that to sell your vote for money is the worst of all treasons, right? And it was regards to voting for the lesser of two evils. To sell your vote for money is the worst of all treasons. And you can take that farther, right? And that's to sell your vote for a better economy, let's say, or to sell your vote for lower
Self-gain.
fuel prices.
Or self-gain.
Yeah, or self-gain. I mean, anything along those terms. If that's what we're voting for, you've committed treason against your own people. I'm not even going to say the American people. You've committed treason against your own people.
Your
Understand
own family.
that. Yeah,
Your own
and
family
that was
you betrayed.
Yeah, and that was way back in James Garfield's day. Okay, we've progressed a lot farther since then, but that point still remains. Okay, and that's why the Constitution Party puts up these other candidates. Right? We understand that it's not a candidate that's going to solve the problem. The people will have to join with, and they have to get it right as well. But if you want to pull that up again, Donna, the Constitution.
You there? I think Bill froze up a minute. He'll be back. You there, Bill? Oh my, we've hit a nerve here, so we can't.
There we go.
There you go. Go ahead.
I was just sitting there talking to myself for some reason. So
yeah,
but yeah, we've
truth. So something took you wanted to silence you. But that's okay, because this is Brandenburg News Network, and or affectionately, because we have registered this, Bloodbath News Network. And that's exactly what we're going to do, is get to the truth. So go ahead.
Yeah. So these are just a couple of the candidates that the Constitution Party puts forward. And I'll even throw this out there, right? The Constitution Party is still a political party. It still falls under the same flaws that John Adams presented when his greatest fear was
Ooh, they want
parties.
Bill
Did I lose everybody again? There we go.
Yeah, try it again. You're good.
Wow. The Constitution Party still falls under John Adams' greatest political evil that he feared under the Constitution, right? And I'll expound on this a little bit. Let's say the Constitution Party takes over and becomes the other half, right, of Congress. Okay, I don't care which half, but let's just say it takes over the other half. What do you still have? You still have two parties fighting against itself, right? That's why I've said from the beginning, my involvement with the Constitution Party, or the U.S. Taxpayers Party in Michigan, is to eliminate the party structures. They need to be done away with completely. But in the meantime, we still have an avenue to become this disruptor, like Donna says, to present candidates who will hold to their oath. Whether or not the people want them or are ready for them, they're always there. You can go back decades and decades and see that. The people that we've put up all the way from Tisch himself, Michael Peruka, when Ross Perot came on the scene, and Rand Paul, we still had candidates running. We had Chuck Baldwin recently. We had Darrell Castle. I mean, over and over again.
Darrell's cool.
Yeah, there's plenty of options. And these are the men who the elite two-party system will not tolerate. They will never, you'll never see them on the mainstream media. You'll never see them invited to debates. You'll never see them even getting a phone call back. Our last presidential candidate, Don Blankenship, he was trying to get a hold of the current president at the time, who became Trump, but the one right before Trump, Obama, and he was calling him out, simply asking for an audience, a 15-minute audience with him on a public show of any sort, his choice, and he wouldn't do that. And he even offered his own money up. He offered $1 million for Trump to come out and debate with him, and he wouldn't do that either. So I'm just saying that there is a larger elite style party system going on that keeps the other minor parties, right? We're not third parties, we're minor parties, just because we're small, that keeps them out of the eyes of the American people. And it's done that way by design. But in the meantime, we have little events that show up that we try to broadcast to everybody, at least everybody that wants to hear it, like this April 6th event. This is just one of our normal state meetings that we have quarterly throughout the year. And at there, we invited the constitutional presidential candidates to it. And unfortunately, a lot of them aren't going to be able to make it. But we do know, for one, Randall Terry will be there in person. And I don't know who else at this point. But the rest of them will be there, hopefully, on video.
I don't have Sam on this brochure yet, or this little advertisement, but I think Sam is willing to get it to come on if we've got the video available, video streaming, which we're working on right now.
Yep, and there are several others. And like with a party structure, even the Constitution Party, almost should have Mark on here so he could actually describe this. But it took us forever to try to even get names, right, through the party lines. And that's party structure, right? I hate it, but it's something that we deal with right now to keep this avenue open, right? Because not only do we throw out presidential candidates, but we also carry local candidates in all of our affiliated counties. We put up candidates for the boards of education, the university regents. We have Donna Brandenburg ran for governor last election cycle in 22. We have candidates all over the place. And I'm not showing this to get everybody's eyes fixed once again on presidential candidates. I'm just saying you have an option here. If you want to come meet a presidential candidate, cool. I've shaken hands with many of them, and I'm very humbled to be able to say that. You get in this realm and you get to meet people you would have never thought you'd been able to talk to. But we need to start focusing on all of the candidates, even in our local level specifically, to get the job done, right? This is where we can have our influence. So I would invite everybody to come out April 6th. You're going to meet a lot of the state party leadership out there from the USDPM, along with at least Randall Terry. That's all I can say for sure now. But there will be a good time out there for a little bit of fellowship afterwards as well. And you'll be able to sit down and talk with us. We're approachable people. We don't try to hide out in the darkness. Everything we do out in the light. So ask questions, get answers, and by God's grace, if you got something we don't know, come and educate us. We can always use a little bit. Everybody can use a little bit of education.
Well, and to that point, I'm going to read the chat a little bit here just because people are gracious enough to post in the chat and hear what they have to say. I've been reading about Ethan Crumbley case, Oxford High School case. He killed 4 students, and the parents got charged also under red flag laws. Something is not sitting right. Ethan got life in prison. Parents get charged 4/9/2024. Prosecutor and gun safety experts coup. Words are parents and gun owners safety store. Firearms sounds like usurpation a lot in this case. Unconstitutional laws aren't laws. Very sad case, but not right to change Article 4, 5, and 6 and 10 and still can find more cases. This is nuts. Michigan's Constitution, Article 2, Section 3, President electors, residents 6 months must read it. It's a scam. Leb says, good morning, Leb. How, okay, look how they treat veterans compared, hang on a minute, my thing's jumping around, to illegal aliens. This government must be abolished. Declaration of Independence 7/4/19 or 1776 and the 12th Amendment. And now a 2020 selection, a headline, what a joke after 4 years. 35 gun owners are victims of red flag laws and unconstitutional gun grab scheme. Communist Party, both parties owned. NGOs and lobbyists control of Michigan, absolutely, as well as the corporate structure. And yes, the Republican public functionaries do not believe 2020 election was hijacked and helped hide evidence, but writes books and fake vote classes they offer. The funniest statement is, yes, there's a constitution, but the laws to follow and deprive you of the constitutional rights or rights guaranteed by the Constitution. What the hell? Like 2A and 1A, Michigan does not believe in God-given rights. And Leb says it's the underage. Thank you for your contributions here. I appreciate that very much. So yeah, we'll have to look up on that case about the Oxford High School case, killing 4 students, and the parents are charged under the red flag laws.
Yeah, well, let's do a specific show on that next week, because there's a lot of information around Oxford, just like there was a lot of information at the start of that, back with Sandy Hook and all that. I mean, you can go in, and I don't like to get into that too much, because I do understand. I do understand the parents of the children that had to go through that. Right?
Possibly. There's so many questions around Sandy Hook. It's not even funny. How did all of the properties in a radius around Sandy Hook have their tax records cleared? There's all, you can look it up, and all of a sudden in one day, all of them had like a negative balance on it. And then how many people have we seen in crisis actor situations? There's a lot of questions, and I don't think we know the truth, because there are truly so many situations where it doesn't make sense. Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma City, there were things that do not make sense, and it feels like a controlled burn on some of these things to keep people chasing their tails and going around not really asking the correct questions. I don't know if I believe any of this anymore, because there's been no proof on any of these circumstances. Everybody knows right now, unless you've been hiding under a rock, that 9/11 was absolutely Absolutely. So many questions there that it is, the questions there will never be settled in my mind. The only thing it settles is that this was absolutely, those towers were taken down by means of our own country, our CIA, probably our CIA, as well as Mossad.
Yeah, well, when they say never let a good crisis go to waste, American people got to understand, not only is the government not letting a crisis go to waste, but they are the crisis makers. They come in and a lot of times they create all of these crises, and then they come in and try to play the problem solvers. And that's how they get away with stuff like the Patriot Act. They ramrodded it through based on a crisis that they invented and they took out against the American people. You want to get me fired up? We can talk about 9/11.
Yeah, I'll get fired up on that one too, because that one had me. I was done with that from minute one. I was done with this. I was like, this is crap. Let me see if I can.
Don't you know that nanothermite is naturally occurring in the streets of New York City?
And directed energy weapons that vaporize steel before people's eyes. If you haven't looked into this, and things that General Stumblebine has said, hang on a second. I'm going to find a 5-minute video. We'll play this because we said it. I think we should look at this a minute, and hang on a minute because I think this is 11. James,
I just saw something new come out of Haiti too, where it was supposedly said that Haiti was found back in 2012 to be full of gold. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, but there's always a money reason, or there's always a reason for their nonsense. And it is absolutely, you want to start looking at this. And when we hear the term follow the money, and I'm going to pretty much guarantee you that you're going to have every question answered that's in your mind about any of this stuff, any and all of it, because if it doesn't make sense, probably there's a reason for it. So I'm going to throw this up here just because we need to get people thinking about this, because everything that we see is a smoke screen right now. And there's more and more to come. And they'll say, oh, it's conspiracy theory. What's the difference between that and truth? About 5 minutes, maybe 10. Let's listen to this, because I think this is watch them give me a strike.
Well, Donna, if you would just a minute, I probably ought to go get my crew running for work here anyway. So
September 11th, 2001.
I'll let you finish the video out, and I'll jump out of here, and we can pick this up next week.
Awesome. Well, we'll say a prayer when you're gone, and then I'll send you the link of this, because this is worth watching. And I got to go pick my mom up from the hospital anyhow today, so I'm gonna be off fairly soon here. But I do want to play this. Have you seen this one before, James Corbett's video?
I have, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's good. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Too.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Well, I'm going to play it for everybody else out there. So, Ralph, if you can hang around, then we're going to keep going. But thanks for being on today, Bill. Have a great day, buddy.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Thanks. Bye. All right, let's watch this, Ralph.
Cutters directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon and the Budget Analyst Office, where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
Sitting there
And the
talking
evidence
to
literally
us.
fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-Tech, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening.
And how about
It
the
was lied to by
insurance
the Pentagon,
changes?
the CIA, the Bush administration.
What's that?
And how about the insurance changes to the trade centers
Silverstein.
just before that, too?
Yeah, Silverstein's purchase of it like 6 months before, and then the insurance that they just bought right before. And those are the terrorists sitting right there in front of you.
And make sure that
that's for
insurance
Bush and
covers
Cheney.
terrorism elements.
Yeah, and then they're going to use exactly what they're doing and blame it on somebody else, and they're terrorists or domestic terrorists sitting right there in the back of that vehicle.
Well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
Failure of imagination.
because
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping.
Just like what they did in our
This declassified
elections.
the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety.
I'm going to interject here when the destruction of evidence, that's exactly what they did in the elections in Michigan, because when the clerks followed Jonathan Brader's direction to not keep any of the records and send it to the county and the state, what do you think they did? It's a freaking cover-up.
The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her, and her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
and
They took the babies out of the incubators.
and
Mobile production facilities.
and
The rescue of Jessica Lynch.
if you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit paranoid tinfoil dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, NSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
I love that. I love that video. I think it's awesome. And
Yeah.
it brings up a lot of things that we should be questioning all of this nonsense and not just taking what they tell us. Because one thing we know is they're proven liars. That's the one thing we can count on, is that they're proven liars. I don't know if they've ever told us the truth about anything. So why would we believe anything that they have to say? And those that stand with them, that's quite, it's the way it is. We follow the laws. So anyhow, what any other thoughts you have, Ralph? I'm gonna need to leave right in a little bit to pick my mom up.
Well, on I guess one quick thought on something that Bill said early on is that interpreting the laws and constitution and writings of any sort really in the context of the meanings of the words at the time, because they keep liking to try and change the meanings of words. There's a reason why several of us have collections of old dictionaries.
Yes, Black's Law Dictionary is one of them I have.
Yep, I've got dictionaries dating all the way back to the 1860s, and there are changes to, in some cases, somewhat forced changes to the way that we use our vocabulary over time, and it's important to make sure that that information gets preserved. That's one of the big dangers that I see, and I bring this up time and time again, with only keeping things digital in the cloud. It's too easy to change them. It's too easy to alter history. And
they did that when our textbooks started getting published in Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
You go back about 30 years and you have differences in what was in the textbooks and in the schools. So they've even rigged the schools through the textbook, altering the textbooks.
Yep. And it's important for the preservation of old knowledge through unchangeable means. Namely, in my opinion, written books is incredibly important. They're EMP proof, they're change proof. I mean, it would take an awful lot. I guess I wouldn't say change proof, but very change resistant. And that it would be very much more difficult for someone to break into every owner of a book and forcibly write a new thing in the book. It's a lot more difficult to do that than it is to change something digitally online, change Wikipedia. A lot of people trust Wikipedia with pretty much every fiber of their being. That is just as changeable as anything else. It's a great resource. I'm not going to take that away from them. They've got a lot of good information on there, but it's changeable as well. And that data preservation and archival is incredibly important and something that everyone needs to take personal responsibility for doing. Not leaving it up to somebody else. Do it yourself, because otherwise you're just trusting archivists.
Well, if you don't take a control or responsibility for taking care of yourself, you're going to be manipulated, and you're going to get the crumbs off of what somebody else typically has. They're not going to feel sorry for you. They're not going to jump on your bandwagon and say, "Oh yes, we have to do this," and such. That's not the way human beings work. Human beings are always making trades. It's the rare individual that doesn't make trades and actually does things just because it's the right thing to do. And I believe that the only way that that's even possible is when we stand with God, fighting for his good purposes, because he gives us the strength and the direction. Everything comes from him. If you don't have that, you're probably in that group that makes trades. Do you do things just because it's the right thing to do, regardless of the consequences, regardless if you pretty much give away everything if you're called to do so, like your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor, as laid out by the Declaration of Independence? Are you willing to do and lay your life down for another? Very few people are willing to do that because they're too busy on trying to make trades, and trades for attention, trades for favor, trades for. I had somebody tell me one. This is a perfect example. It's an extreme example, but it's a great example. Somebody died. A dad of one of my friends died, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to that funeral because I might need them someday." And I was like, "That's not why you go to a funeral, because you're going to be there for them when in their low time. That's not why you go to a funeral, because they might need you someday." What kind of a hijacked brain thought is this? It's like, and I said it to the person. I said, "That's like really messed up." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "You don't go to funerals in case you need them someday. You go because you care, and you're going there to help heal them and not be alone in their time of sorrow, and to maybe just sit and so that they don't feel alone for a while, to help heal their heart. But it's not because you're going to use them and have a tally on the wall here and say, 'Well, I did this for you, and so I'm going to call in a marker here someday.'" That's like so messed up. It's not even funny. But that's what I think human beings do. They're always making a trade. And it's messed up. That's so messed up.
Yeah,
So
you don't look at what your neighbor has and think, "Do I have this? Am I doing better than them?" You look at what your neighbor has and say, "Do they have enough?"
Okay, I got to check something out a minute. Hold on. This is messed up here. Not sure what I'm seeing or hearing outside, but it's crazy. Let's see. Nope. Okay. So yeah, you do it because it's just the right thing, and you do it as an honor to God. So there you go. Well, with that said, let's say a prayer here, Ralphie. And I got to go pick my mom up. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Ralph and for Bill and for all the wonderful patriots that have tuned in to the show on a regular basis, like Charlotte and Leb and Hawks and so many others that are out there that seem to, and Rob. There's so many people that are involved in this that I know are really good people that really just want to see things put right, that your will be done. We ask that you would please give us all courage, bravery today to stand, unlike what we've been seeing in our government, that we can be an example. If there's not an example, let us be an example of the way that things are supposed to be, because you're carrying us. And let them not see us, let them see you, not us, because we're failed. And even the best of the best makes mistakes. And we're thankful that we can always come to you and ask for forgiveness, make things right, and then go forward following you and trying to get this whole thing of life right every day, which is pretty much walking with you. That's the only thing we could do, is just walk with you and say, okay, Dad, give us some help here. Heavenly Father, we need your help. And try to keep our eyes on you and learn from your example and your leading us and such like that. That's the best thing ever. Thank you for this day ahead of us. And we ask a blessing on every single person out there, that you would touch their hearts, that they would know that you care, and that instead of running away from you, that they would run towards you for healing, for provision, for righting the things in their life that they may not have quite right, and knowing that you are good and faithful always. We just thank you so much. You've been a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you too. We love you. In Jesus Christ's precious name we pray. Amen. Amen. So there we go, guys. Here we go. Boom, right there. Please go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded history of the United States. And because I'm not conceding the 2020 or the 2022 election, because it was a fraud. It was lies. It was cheating. It was stealing. Everything about it was wrong. They didn't do one thing right. Except maybe God's intention from this was to wake everybody up and say, hey, guys, wake up. It's going down, and it's not turning out well. Perhaps we want to, turn and look back to me, and I'll lead you out of this nonsense. I kind of think that's where we are right now. So with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love. And God bless America. It's going to be a great day today. Go ahead and make it. So it starts here, no matter what happens. Somebody comes and you get hit with something that you're not expecting. It's like, okay, God, what am I supposed to learn from this today? Don't feel sorry for yourself or pity party or anything like that. It's like, okay, new day, got something new to learn, and I'm going to get smarter after this little situation that I wouldn't have chosen if I had the choice in it. But that's okay. That's part of the process. And tell your family you love them, hug them, kiss your pets, make sure they know you love them too, and all those good things. And so have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm not sure who's going to be on tomorrow yet, but it may be Ralph and Karen and I tomorrow, just for a respite. But we also have Jeff Bongiorno. I'm friends with him. They picked up all of his election integrity stuff, and it made it to Gateway Pundit, and a couple of real big Twitter accounts also passed this on. So I asked him if he wanted to be on tomorrow. We'll see, because those guys are doing the heavy lifting. And then also Peter Berger, he got arrested. He was the one that was showing the smurfing. So I'm going to give everybody a call and see what tomorrow brings, because a lot of times it's just all about adapt and adjust, move forward, adapt and adjust. Don't let it get you down. Just keep moving. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. One thing you can know, I'll be here tomorrow, God willing. So have a great day.